So this is ATK F1 V2 Ultimate, and this is probably one of the most hyped mouse and also one of the most critically acclaimed mouse in the recent times or past couple of months or so. And this is no surprise considering this mouse comes with a flagship sensor and the flagship MCU, well, almost flagship that it comes with. And the shape is also pretty intriguing, which is also a shape loved by almost all, even though the shape is primarily targeted towards the clock grip users. But why is this mouse so talked about? And is it even actually good? And what do the test results show actually? And what is even its latency, which I'll be testing with the OSLTT. So let's see how this mouse holds in my today's review and see if it's actually value for money or not. So welcome to a review of ATK F1 Ultimate V2. Today's review unit was sent to me by Easy Gadgets themselves. Easy Gadgets has been one of the prime importer of PC peripherals in Bangladesh. They have always aimed for ultra premium peripherals or hard to find peripherals in Bangladesh and import them to the users who want them. And they're the official importer of Aviton, Kurui and some other brands. You can grab your desired peripherals, be it keyboard, mouse, headset, microphone, controller or so on from them, and you can also grab this ATK F1 V2 Ultimate from them for only 7000 BDT, so do check them out. And now onto the video. So let's start with the unboxing of this mouse, and the unboxing experience was pretty premium for this price this mouse offers in. So this mouse comes with the standard ATK's packaging with all the details mentioned in the top and the bottom of the box, and removing the cover we get access to our main box. We'll get to the mouse later, and let's check the accessories at first. So in the accessories, the first thing we get are the quick paperworks, of which one of them is the user guide and the other one is the warranty paper. And then we also get the product warranty certificate, and that's all for the paperworks. After that, we get to the extra feeds and the grip tabs, and we can see there are two sets of PDF feeds, which is there for a reason since the mouse doesn't come pre-applied with the feeds. And that will be all for the unboxing. And yes, I did forget to show the USB cable, but rest assured, the USB cable is pretty premium and braided. So now let's get to the mouse first. So at first, we get the 8K polling rate based dongle, which comes in a transparent shell design and looks pretty good with the ATK Guard logo printed on top of it, and it's made of piece plastic and feels pretty premium to hold too. And after all of this, we get to our mouse, and getting the mouse out of the plastic wrap, we finally get to our beautiful matte black colored ATK F1 V2 Ultimate. So that's about it for the unboxing, and now to the next part. So let's talk about the shape of the mouse now. And the shape is pretty much one of the most charming factor of this mouse, and probably one of the main reason people would buy this mouse. The shape is closer to resembling the Pulsar X2 Mini, which we are gonna show in a bit, but it's not exactly Pulsar X2 Mini. Disclaimer alert. For the initial look of the mouse, it's an almost asymmetrical body with slightly spread out bottom on the both side and also on the both side of the groups, which cause the backside to have a wider area surface. This also makes the finger placement pretty comfortable for this mouse. From the side, we can also see the front half of this mouse is almost towards a steep inclination to the front from exact middle, and on the back, the hump is well rounded. It's not exactly elevated, or the hump isn't really pushed backward. Rather, the hump stays in the middle and has a proper inclination from mid to back. So it does give a good comfort on palm grip, but for extreme claw grip, the hump being a bit back would have helped more. Again, the main design inspiration of this mouse was not exactly one-to-one clone of the Pulsar X2 Mini, but it's really close. Then looking from the front, we can also see the both sides of this mouse are asymmetrical, and there is no argo-shaped inclination on the either side of the left or the right side. From the back, it does seems to have no inclination on either left or the right side, and it's just properly symmetrical mouse. It seems so. And looking from the bottom, we can also get a much clearer view of the shape, and thus we can see the symmetry of this mouse with a flared up bottom part of the mouse. Then measuring the mouse, we get the length of this mouse is 118mm. Then for the width, the top is 59.7mm and the middle width is 59.2mm, and the bottom width is 60.8mm. And as for the height, the mouse from the front has 20.5mm for height, and from the middle the height is right about 38.1mm. So the shape is pretty much identical to the official specs that ATK claims to be, and it's a pretty comfortable shape for a clock grip user. And for further discussion of the shape, let's go to the yellow shape now. So to start with the shape comparison, in the yellow shape, I'll be comparing comparing the ATK F1 V2 Ultimate with MCZ L7 Pulsar X2 Mini and ATK X1 V2 Ultimate. As for proper shape distinction, except the Pulsar X2 Mini, all three of these mice are in the same price segment, and so I think it would be a fair comparison. So to start comparing with the Pulsar X2 Mini, since the shape is kind of inspired from the Pulsar X2, we can see the length is pretty much similar to the Pulsar X2 Mini, but the F1 does have a bit longer shell and the sensor placement seems to be more backward than the Pulsar X2 Mini, and except that the Pulsar also has a wider mid width with a narrower back width, and the front of the mouse is also a bit taller on the ATK F1 V2 Ultimate. Then comparing with the MCZ L7, the L7 is pretty much the identical shape of the Pulsar X2 Mini, and considering both ATK F1 and MCZ L7 Ultra are both on the same price segment, the shape comparison is also pretty much similar. Even though the height and the back hump are a bit different, the overall similarity gives the space to select between a proper palm support or a proper claw support. And as we can see here, the L7 has an identical mid width compared to the ATK F1, and the back width is similar to the Pulsar X2 Mini. And for the people confused to pick between the ATK F1 and the ATK X1, here's the comparison. Even though they have a near identical specs, the shape is vastly different. For the Pulsar X1, the ATK X1 is more into the Viper V3 shape rather than a small mouse, and due to this specific shape, holding this mouse in claw or fingertip grip is pretty much comfortable, the ATK F1 obviously, and in relaxed palm grip, the mouse seems to be pretty small, and to comfortably hold onto it is pretty difficult, but for a fingertip grip, it's somewhat doable. But still, the best grip style for this mouse is claw grip, and that's about it for the shape comparison. So now we are at the build of the mouse, and this mouse comes with the ABS plastic shell, which is standard for a budget mouse. The surface of the mouse also has a slight nano coating to it, and it's not just a matte plastic, so it does give a pretty good grip, but also makes it prone to smudge or finger oil magnet. But that can also be wiped off with a quick rub with isopropyl alcohol and a tissue. Considering the shape, the mouse is also pretty good to hold on to, which also makes the mouse have zero hand fatigue while holding. And to check the required part for a build of a mouse, which is the squeaking test, even though seems like after pressing quite hard on the both side, the mouse didn't flex at all, and even on the top, the mouse didn't squeak at all or get pressed inwards. So that is really assuring, since the mouse has a pretty well built body and should not have any kind of rattling inside the mouse. And for the clicks, there were no pre-travel, but there was slight post-travel, but not that much, and it shouldn't really affect you at all. As for the squeaking of the clicks, there was no kind of weird movement on the clicks, and the clicks were pretty tight with zero rattling, making the mouse hold on to pretty strongly. And there was zero pre-travel or post-travel on the side clicks also, and there was zero rattling on the scroll. The scroll was pretty tight and had enough tactility, which we'll be discussing in the next part of the video. On the back of the mouse, it also has a pretty clean back, which seems to be kind of unsettling, seeing a lot of mice putting a heck lot of stuffs on the back. The sensor here is kind of placed on the middle, but not exactly. As you can see, by measuring the sensor placement, it seems to be from the top, the sensor is placed 49.7mm, and from the bottom, the sensor seems to be 52.4mm away. So the sensor isn't exactly on the middle, but it didn't affect me really on the performance, which we'll also be seeing on the next performance part. And on the side of the sensor, there is the power on switch, and since this is a dual mode mouse, there was no Bluetooth mode for it, and unfortunately, there is also no DPI switch, which kind of makes sense since they're aiming to make the mouse as lightweight as possible. And we can see there was also no fits installed for the mouse, and after applying the fits properly, since the fit application was pretty simple, it was a quick job. But be careful on the outlines of the fit and we'll be good to go. Not to mention, the fits are not just generic OEM fits, but they should be a bit more upgrade for being an OEM fit, and they're moderately thick, so it should have more time to wear down. But again, for a mouse like this, aftermarket fits are definitely recommended. So the overall build quality of this mouse was pretty good, and I don't have really a point to complain about for the price this mouse comes in. So that's about it for the build quality, and now to the next part. Now for the weight, and the weight of this mouse is pretty much what the spec says. So measuring the mouse without the fit, the weight is right around 38.57 grams, and with fit, the weight is right around 39.89 grams, which they claimed 39 grams, and it's pretty much accurate for this mouse. And checking the weight balance, while holding the mouse from the top and the bottom, the mouse didn't tilt on either on the left side or on the right side. And also while holding the mouse from the middle, the mouse also didn't tilt at the front or on the back. So it can be said that the mouse is properly center balanced, and the weight distribution is near perfect for this mouse, which makes it very comfortable to hold on to. So for the specs, instead of going through the generic spec sheet of this mouse, let's open this mouse. And to open the mouse, at first, we have to get our 4 screws out of the bottom, and After that, the mouse pretty much opens up with a slight bit of prying open the top shell, and the top shell is also connected with the joystick cable with the side buttons with 2 screws, and opening the screws we get to remove the side button panel. Thus we have a look at the top shell, which is pretty thin and doesn't seem to have that much going on. On the top we do see both of the clicks does have some kind of rubber dampener on both of them, which ensures proper softness with zero rattling on the clicks. And now let's get to the main part. Let's go through the side switches at first, and they're the TTC's 5 million click switches, which are pretty durable and should last you a while. Then we have our main switch, and they are AE optical switches, which should be some kind of custom switches for ATK F1 by AE, and these are rated for 100 million click lifetimes, which is pretty decent compared to the price point. And right beside the switches we get to see our encoder, and this is TTC gold encoder, which has a 5 million scroll lifetime, which is also dust proof and should also last you quite a while. Then down to the middle part we get to see our sensor, which is the Pixar's 3950 Ultra sensor, and that is pretty much the flagship sensor for the 3950 variant as of my review. And even though there are better overclock versions, and right now there are advertisements about 3955 sensors, but we will talk about that later. But for the price, this is pretty much what you would expect to get under $100. And on the top right of the sensor, there's the MCU, and the MCU this mouse houses is the Nordics 54L15, and this is also almost the flagship MCU, and its upgrade is the 54L20, which is just slight more less power consuming than the 15, but the performance difference is pretty much identical for both of these MCUs. And for the battery, this mouse comes with 200 mAh battery, which can last up to a week, and the 4 kHz can last up to 3 to 5 days, and the 8 kHz on extreme mode should last you about 2 to 3 days. Lastly, for the scroll click, I am kind of disappointed on this part, since the scroll click is just a plunger switch, and these are prone to failing, and you might need to replace the scroll click after some time. So that's about it for the specs, and I don't think the price this mouse comes in, there is any point to complaining about the specs or ask anything more about it. So for the performance, let's be done with the elephant in the room at first, which will be the latency test of this mouse. And since I recently got the OSLTT tester, I can accurately measure the latency test of this mouse and its overall latency. So for hardware latency, on wireless mode, the average latency of this mouse is right around 0.172 milliseconds, and for the minimum latency, that is 0.046 milliseconds. And for maximum, the latency is right around 0.37 milliseconds, and for wired mode, the hardware latency is 0.03 on average and 0.07 on minimum, and also 0.5276 on the maximum. And for the total system lag of this mouse, or the total system latency, on wireless mode the average is right around 0.67 milliseconds and the highest is 1.80 milliseconds. And in wired mode, the total system latency is right around 2.173 on average, while the minimum is 1.53 milliseconds and the maximum is 2.388 milliseconds. So the overall performance is pretty much amazing for this mouse, especially on the hardware end, since the claim of getting 0.163 millisecond latency from ATK is somewhat true, as I got 1.72 on average and 0.046 milliseconds on the wireless mode, and the latency claim is pretty much accurate for this mouse. The polling rate also pretty much checks out for 8 kHz, like it stays around 7.8 kHz, which is normal for 8 kHz polling rate mouse, and at 7.8 kHz the polling rate pretty much averages out, and there was no sensor inconsistency and sensor accuracy issue. Thusly, after all of this, let's see how this plays in game. And while playing Valorant, the performance of this mouse was pretty much flawless. The headshots were pretty accurate, and even at long distance with a very small window of error, the mouse was precise on shooting headshots over distances. There was no system lag, no jitter, or no sensor deviation or anything unusual on this mouse, and I have been pretty much happy with playing this mouse on my last month of usage with it. Speaking of the software of this mouse can be both downloaded or can be used as WebDriver, and I'll be showing the WebDriver. It's convenient and has pretty much a great experience overall. So to pair this mouse, we need to press the add new device, then select the mouse from here and then connect the mouse, and then finally we get a look at the dashboard when we are clicking the mouse, and thus we get to see all the settings of this mouse. So for the first step of the remap setting of this mouse, as you can see, it's pretty much obvious. Then on the second tab, there's the shortcut settings, which you can customize by yourself. For the DPI settings, it's pretty much self-explanatory. You get to select the DPI up to 4 profiles, and you can add more DPI profiles. Then for the performance settings, here is the main game starts. As you can see, we get to set the polling rate from 120Hz to 8 kHz, and here's also the thing I'm talking about, the battery life of this mouse. In regular mode we can get about 24 hours to 250 hours depending on the usage, but for competitive firmware the battery life gets massively reduced to 23 to 38 hours, and that is on 8 kHz polling rate. And then for the maximum performance, the battery life pretty much goes down to 38 hours, which will be roughly for 4 days of usage if you are going to use your mouse pretty much consistently. And the battery life is also pretty good, with the firmware stability being enough, which we got to see in the performance part of the graph. For the other settings, on the next tab we get to see there is motion sync, ripple control, ultra distance mode, which is a pointless thing in my opinion. Then there's the elite settings, the dongle lighting effect, the sensor rotation if you're gonna hold the mouse slightly off angle than holding straight. Then there's the mouse delay and sleep time settings, and then there's the click delay and the sleep time settings, and lastly another thing which I'm not really familiar with. Then lastly, for the macro settings or onboard configuration of this mouse, we can just quickly swap between the configurations for your desired settings. Then there's also the cloud configuration where you can see other users customize their mice and other ATK products. Lastly, in the other settings we can update our receiver, then update our mouse, and lastly also pair our receiver and also factory reset of this mouse. So that's about it for the software, and the software is pretty much one of the best software experience or one of the best travel experience in the market right now. And yes, there's slight loading delay of their website, but the smoothness was pretty much great for this website, and it was pretty much easy to navigate through the website. So I would give a +1 for the web experience of this mouse. So time for the verdict, and to keep it short, yes, this mouse is totally worth it, and it's really nothing to question about whether it's worth it or not, even though this is a quite average mouse based on the current standard of a flagship mice. But for a $60 price segment, the mouse is well within the near perfect range in this price segment specifically. Yes, there are some nitpicks to talk about this mouse, but the overall build quality, the specs, and the performance of this mouse was pretty much flawless, and it is also one of the lowest latency mice with absolute zero issue in gaming performance. And yes, I would definitely recommend this mouse. And to check more details of this mouse and for further update, you guys can visit my website, which is at notsonabil.com, where I'll be showing all the details of this mouse and more photoshoots and other testing results of any kind of products except this mouse also, be it mouse, keyboard, controller, monitor, or so on. So that's about it for today. I absolutely did love to use this mouse, and I would definitely recommend for you to buy it. So thanks for watching and stay safe, and if you want to join my socials and my Discord server, all the links will be added in the description box, and that's about it. Peace.